Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your boy Takedownman, and I am back with another episode. That's right. On this episode of Confessions of a Serial Killer, we go into his college years of rabid cannibal. So stay tuned and enjoy. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. You know when my last confession was. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, yeah, this guy is full of shit. I don't really care. I am here to tell my story. Because, like I told you before, I don't have long in this world. Now, we're going to go ahead and skip through the years and go to my college years. Let's just say I was going for something medical. I'm going to leave it at that. However, access to things like chloroform back in these days were relatively easy, and I used to follow this girl around all the time, to the point to where she befriended me and trusted me. So for 2 months, I would walk her home every night, much like it's nighttime right now. And it was long, dark roads, very long, dark roads. So one day, I said, enough's enough. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it. I'm going to kill this bitch. She didn't make me mad. She didn't make me angry. She was actually a very sweet girl. But every time that I have killed, for some reason, time just stopped and the world made sense. And the way my life was going at this time in college was very stressful. And I needed things to make sense again. Well, unfortunately, the first time I tried to actually put the chloroform on a cloth, it made me very, very nauseous and pretty lightheaded, and I had lower back pain for a while. So I had to wait a few weeks. Whenever I did, I learned that if you put cotton in your nose, you can do it to where it's not really noticeable if you keep your face down, especially at night whenever I walked her home. So I did this, and I made sure I put chloroform on a rag. We went to walking. We got to the spot that I had chosen, acted like I was going to kiss her, and I put the cloth over her face. Immediately, she started screaming, and I had to put my hand over her mouth, try to put the cloth back over her face, and realize that dry chloroform, even though it is somewhat effective, is not very effective. So I pulled out a little bottle that I had put in my pocket just in case, poured some more on it while I'm trying to keep my hand over her mouth at the same time, and put it over her face. Now, if you watch movies, it looks like people go down instantly on this stuff. They do not. Chloroform is very time consuming, more so when people hold their breath. It took almost a minute for her to go down. Whenever I removed the cloth from her face, there were indentions all on her face, almost like burns. She wasn't so beautiful anymore. But it didn't matter. I had brought along a few tools to have some fun with, and she was kind of in and out of it. She wasn't out completely, but she was in and out of it. However, whenever I did this, I was fixing to start working on her, on my prey. And I will let you know now, it was going to be long, and it was going to be time consuming. But it didn't matter, because nobody knew that I really knew her. See, I was one of those friends that, like, the women had, but they didn't want their other friends to know, so we would meet up. Got in a secret location, and then I would stop about a block from her house and just watch her walk home. So I knew there was no way that I would ever be suspected of this. Well, unfortunately, we're going to go back to the chloroform part here. I was fixing to do what needed to be done to my prey to make sense of the world again. But right before I could, she started gagging. She started throwing up. And whenever I say throw up, I mean throwing up everywhere. I backed up because I didn't want to get it on me. It stunk. It was horrible. But then I noticed something. About a minute later, she stopped moving completely and her eyes were wide open. Much like my sister and her boyfriend. Somehow, she had choked to death on her own vomit. And I'm not really sure to this day what happened. But I'm believing that chloroform was a bad idea at this point. So, I didn't really get the gratification that I needed. The world didn't stop. Nothing happened. So I started reading in books. And I seen ether was also something that was very good. So once again, I had to make a secret friend. Months went by. This girl would not trust me to walk her home. Well, after a few months, she finally did. But unfortunately, ether has the same damn effect. And for some reason, I cannot ever find anything that tells me how long I need to hold it over somebody's face in order for them to only pass out so I can do what I want to do with as minimal force as possible and the minimalization of screaming. I really don't need that. So, a friend of mine ended up telling me about this plant that he had. It was from Colombia. They called it the Baratura plant, I believe. And it translated into English as the devil's plant. Well, it's what he would do is he would take the seeds and crush them up and make a fine powder out of it, thus called scopolamine. And he told me that scopolamine is a zombie drug. It basically, for 8 hours, makes somebody do anything you say. This, to me, was a dream come true. Scopolamine it was. So I got some from him. I didn't tell him why. And the best part is, they don't test for it. He just gave it to me. He didn't even care. He didn't even ask why. I guess he assumed that I was going to do whatever he was doing with it, which was just getting women. He said all I had to do was put some on some paper, write directions very small on the paper, and ask the girl for directions. He said that pretty much instantly, once she breathed it in off the paper, that she would be mine for at least 8 hours. So I did this. I wrote the directions as small as I could and asked her for the directions. Well, it wasn't as instant as he said, but it did actually work. And I just had to test it. And I said, come with me. And she did. No hesitation whatsoever. She looked completely coherent, but she wasn't. So I pulled out a box cutter and just told her, cut yourself. The bitch cut herself. I couldn't believe it. This was like a new drug of the gods. Me, the predator, is now a god. And if you do not know what it feels like to be able to tell somebody to mutilate themselves over and over and over and over again and watch them do it, and not so much as be afraid to do it, you will never understand what I'm talking about. I use this at least a good 30 times throughout my life, and quite a few times in college. It's amazing how much of a rush you can get from making somebody inflict everything on themselves. And you can make them commit suicides, you can make them write suicide letters, and nobody thinks twice about what's happened. Because people who are in school are always stressed out. Yes, that's right. This is something that nowadays is a little harder to get. However, it's not impossible. I've gotten it plenty. But I did realize one time while I was in college, I gave it to a girl. And I guess I used too much because she started bleeding out of her nose and her mouth and started to convulse, and, well, she died. Unfortunately, that was not a very fun night because, well, when people die before you get your happiness out of it, it's a waste. It's a serious waste. However, I want you to know that to watch somebody cut themselves repeatedly, cut their face up, especially whenever they're beautiful, to cut that beauty away is such a rush. To cut up and down their arms, their legs, their stomachs, their breasts, everywhere, even their private areas. It is just amazing to watch them do it, to be bleeding everywhere, and not so much as one tear. This is what it's about. Now, I know many of you are thinking, well, that sounds okay, but you're not actually doing anything to them. Believe me when I tell you this. It is the same rush, if not better, to have control over somebody like you are God Himself. And this is what it's about. It is about having power, being the predator, and taking advantage of the prey. And when you have godlike powers to tell them to do whatever you wish and they do it, you have attained a new level of godhood, the God of the predators. This has been my confession. Do you wish to see more? If you do, come back 2 days from now, because we're going to leave college. Yeah, we're going to leave college. And you're going to figure out why my name is Rabid Cannibal. I will tell all. I want you to be prepared. I am hoping to inspire you with this. That your emotions and your feelings are not wrong. It is the way nature has intended you to be. The predator, and this is my confession. So stay tuned for Friday's episode of Confessions of a Serial Killer with another entry from Rabbit Cannibal. And sweet dreams, guys. We'll see you next time right here on the Takedownman channel.